good evening, maybe good morning somewhere. Whatever your time is, welcome to this ongoing reading their thoughts, teachings, how to not stay in the extreme views or conduct or thought that keeps oneself in the chill of samsara, not find the coziness of the way of the Buddha in which one finds refuge. When we feel cold, we want to go somewhere warm. When we're hungry, we want to eat something. But what do we do when we're lost in our wrong views? And that's exactly the entry to the middle way is all about. We have had the good opportunity to go through the first part of these texts, the first 5 bodhicittas, generation of the altruism. Of course, these chapters are named after levels of altruism. One should learn to lift the bar so that one doesn't just stay stagnant in a particular level of what we call wishing bodhicitta or engaging bodhicitta. These 10 chapters are named after 10 bodhicittas because each of them correlates to one of the stages of the Buddhahood. Buddhahood means enlightenment. Enlightenment means selflessness. So one who reaches the certain levels of selflessness, not only philosophically or intellectually, but actually through meditation and a discipline and behavior, those bodhisattvas reach greater heights. So when we are reading through these different levels of this bodhicitta, the 6th chapter particularly, 6th bodhicitta, these are not some kind of easy subjects or topics that the beginners can hear or listen or read or explain and understand on one seat. This is just we're trying to implant some propensities in our mind so that we got used to these teachings. And one day that when we go through the different levels of stages, that then we actually know. For instance, this 6th chapter, 6th bodhicitta, is the wisdom chapter. This wisdom chapter talks about the greatness of perfection wisdom, how difficult it is to understand, to teach to suitable candidates, and the benefit it has for those who listens to them, not to mention the benefit of contemplating, understanding, and applying them. Just listening to them will wash your sorrows that has been hanging on you due to the wrong views. And it is said that the one who, once the understanding of this 6th bodhicitta is understood, then you will be able to sympathize or develop compassion to those who hold wrong views, be that fellow practitioners or non-practitioners, or even within the same fold of practitioners. So we went through the merit of listening to these teachings, and then how the actually teaching that, because this 6th chapter is all about explaining how to realize selflessness of phenomena and selflessness of person. To practice selflessness, you have to develop selfless with the body, with the feelings, and so on with things. So when one knows that oneself, even imputed conventionally as with a name and whatever it is, we should think that is a merely imputed one, interdependently originated one. We're not truly existing phenomena from our side, from our own side, nor are any phenomena truly existing from their own side. They're all interdependently originated. So main topic is therefore how to explain that everything is interdependent origination. Interdependently originated. Be that object like a carpet or person like ourselves, let alone events or something that happens. Often we hold the wrong view, as if it's not interdependent. It's just all you or all he, or we point finger and that's it. Go quickly in that finger wagging. So the one who understands this bodhicitta is to develop bodhicitta, to develop altruism, how to give a choice to those who do that not to. They're so used to by past karmic habitual pattern not to. But when one who listens to this teaching will slowly predispose how to see things all as merely imputed, and that whatever is imputed is dependent on the imputation, not on the thing that is imputed. Thing that is imputed is totally dependent on the imputing. If things are not imputed, then the imputer creates the convention or labels the object, and then the object becomes labeled, so that is dependent on the labeler. There is no labeled thing as such. So therefore, when we see the mutually inclusive nature of the imputer and imputing and imputed, they are interdependent. When you understand interdependent, then you will understand the phenomena. The phenomena are merely all imputed by us, all labeled by us, relatively labeled by us, something tall or short or heavy or light or new or old or friends or stranger or kind or unkind, all these things. It's just we don't realize how much of that is totally dependent on our own imputation, our own label that we conceive in our mind and we impute them. The reason why we have to explain the interdependent origination through the selflessness of the phenomena is otherwise there is this wrong view, thinking everything is independently, truly existing from its own side or from the other side, or whatever, so full alternatives. So right now what we're going through is refuting the production from the other, self-production was already refuted. I mean, refutation of self-production is that thing does not produce itself from itself. Yeah. Firstly, it would be no need, because it already is. Secondly, there will be countless self-productions. Ceaselessly, it will be producing. So the self-production is negated and refuted. The benefit of doing that is we will be able to develop bodhicitta. For those who don't know this, we develop compassion to those who have rigid views and think that it was created by itself, and therefore they go to great length of causing suffering to themselves. A lot of individualistic. In the modern developed country, people are always thinking it's my own fault, and there's a huge suicide rate. It's because they think it's all their own doing. That is the problem. which is so harmful to oneself. So we have to teach people that things are all dependently originated. It's not at all. What you did is small part of it. There's many causes and conditions. So when we say that the Bodhisattva was meditating on the nature of the five aggregates, that they lack inherent existence, as that is a very great meditation, is they're meditating on bodhicitta. They're meditating on that, knowing sentient beings are not able to think like that. They're grasping to something as truly existing or self-produced or other-produced, so for that matter. So we are now doing the second one, negating the production from the other. That's just a little bit going over what we covered so far. And in terms of our text, we are on verse number 20 of chapter 6. And this is about the negating production from other, because there are no production at the same time. So there's no simultaneousness of this, of the cause and result. It says, "Kalte miki lola rangi kiji tujik ba migla sodan henjing jungwan dushi la sok ba shini yona yola jungwa gobachi shi yo jide temechenan de la nyeba shesinto." You see? So this is captured. If consciousness of sight, which means I, if I consciousness arises at the same time as its stimuli, that means the sense, some visual object, the eye, the object, and simultaneous perception, it's other and already present. Why should it arise again? Because it does not yet exist, you say. The faults of such theory we have already shown. Now, this is negating the production from the other on the basis of the reasoning, saying that there's no production of the same time, simultaneous. Different times we have negated the theory that the cause and result are simultaneous, but even if they were to occur at the same time, there's no production, Production meaning something coming out of something, in the case of I consciousness, the producer, which produces I consciousness, so the I sense organ and I consciousness, So I sense organ is not necessarily, I consciousness, People have beautiful eye, but they can't see nothing, So that shows that the sense I organ and I consciousness are two different things. And I consciousness accepted as a simultaneous with I consciousness. The I sense organ and the accompanying perception, which is perception, meaning all the mental states. So if I see a white cat, people think that I see the white cat because whiteness of the cat came from the cat. As soon as I see with my eyes, they don't realize there are a lot of precognition of the catness and whiteness in my mind, because if one who has never heard or thought or conception of a cat, when it sees, even when the cat is right before, he has no label for it. He has no accompanying mental consciousness to recognize cat from mouse from dog. He doesn't have. But he has already these many accompanying mental consciousness. In the explanation of mental states, we say that when the I consciousness is present, there are certain accompanying mental states that arise at the same time as the I consciousness, and they help each other. So this is talking about the interdependentness of it. So there's no object that is other than the I produces the object, produces the result. Because we often think that what we see came from the object. We don't realize that how much of them is preconditioning of our own mind that actually is accompanying mental consciousness, is making things to appear. Why do they say beauty is in eye of the beholder? Of course, it's half true, but So this means that it doesn't arise from the object, which is other than the eye. We have already refuted eye doesn't produce by itself the beauty. So that saying is not quite accurate, but at least it validates the fact that it is not in the other that you look at doesn't produce the beauty. The object doesn't produce the beauty. but something else does. Yeah, so that means that eye sense organ definitely helps, but definitely helps. But eye sense organ, the accompanying perception, other mental state are simultaneous here. They exist simultaneously with the resultant eye consciousness. This is believed by the Yogacara. Yogacara is the mind-only school, which believes the simultaneous cause and result. So this is more sort of refutation of the views of the mind-only school. Yeah, mind-only school thinks things like that. In this case, even though the cause and result may be separate, if they exist simultaneously and separately, there is no reason for the rising of the result. In other words, when something already exists, there's no need for production. So if the beauty is an object, you don't have to go and look at it. Beauty is in the object by itself. You don't need to go and look to say it's beautiful, because the object it already is beautiful from its own side, you see. The eye sense organ is the perception, and the other mental states are considered to be the causes. That is, there are many causes and result that eye consciousness, and they are simultaneously. So talking about the multiple causes and conditions, because usually we think it's one is the cause, and we're always hunting one, you know. We always say this unitary existence. This unitary existence is a wrong basis of the wrong view. Autonomous production, unitariness, you know. Tak-chik rawa in tak means permanent. Chik means unitary. Rawa means independent. You know. So it's that which is permanent, that is unitary, that is autonomous. These are the three causes of the wrong views. When we say it is not produced from by itself or by other, so it is saying it is dependent. So it refuses the independence. If it's production, it could not be permanent. So the permanence is refused. Yeah, if it is more than one, it doesn't produce by itself. Of course, it's not autonomous. Because of that, these views are to authenticate that things are, but not where they appears. Yeah. If they exist simultaneously, we can say the cause and result are separate, because we can have both of these things at the same time, which means they are separate, one from the other. But since they exist both separately and simultaneously, they both exist. So when the eye consciousness already exists, what is the use of having the other causes existing at the same time? In other words, so means if the object is beautiful from its own side, it already exists beautiful from its own side. So why doesn't it eye to say or to prove that it is beautiful? Because it exists from its own side, which it doesn't. So therefore, nothing exists beautiful or anything from its own side. It needs something else. Is it this the eye? No, it needs mental consciousness. It needs the space between the eye and the object as well. I think if the thing is touching on the eye, I don't think it will see any beauty. So there are many causes you have to have. When the eye consciousness already exists, what is the use of other coexist at the same time? In other words, there is no need for these causes. If you were to say, if it's other produce, if other produce. So that will do. And then the third point is negating production from other through analyzing the four alternatives. So four alternatives. So this is captured in verse number 21. Kebra cheba keja hingi pade gyuyin na yoba am onde meda niga nida jige tang. Mena keje chigo mebang tene chishikcha nime late chishi chijanyidan talang te chicha. Even in Tibetan it's very tough. It's a very really good. It says even if producers are the causes of the product other than themselves, is what they generate existent, non-existent, both, and neither. These are four alternatives. If existent, why is the producer needed? If non-existent, what does the producer do? If both, again, what use is it? If neither, yet again, what purpose does it serve? So this is very captured by the last part of this commentary. So if it is existent, which is the first alternative, if something already exists, then there's no need to produce it, since the purpose of production is to make something to exist. If something already exists, why you have to produce, So if it's something that exists, then that is permanent. But when you have to produce it, it's impermanent. So if it's already existing, there's no purpose. So therefore, it has to. It is not existing from its own side. That's what it says. And that's the first alternative. Second is, if it's non-existing, the cause can still not produce it, because something that does not exist cannot be made to be existent. That is another reasoning why usually used in the Madhyamika text. In other words, you can't make existence out of nothingness. So this is very important, because this prevents oneself from falling into the nihilist view. Yeah. If you say non-existent, then a nihilist. Yeah. So if you can change something that does not exist at all into something that exists, you should also be able to do same thing with things that are supposedly non-existent, such as rabbit horns or a flower in the space. This means that you can't produce something that is non-existent. Yeah. So that's really refute the nihilist view. Previously one, if this existence is eternal's view. Third option is something that is both existent and non-existent is not possible. Either. It is not possible even to imagine something that does not belong either to the category of existent or non-existent. So that is not even, you can't even talk about it. Yeah. Fourth one is though none of these four alternatives can our result be produced by another cause. This is another way of refuting production of other. So therefore the analyzing through the four alternatives. And this is mainly recapping what was already covered before. Now coming to the second main point, rejecting the refutations. So these are arguments back. This is true. First one is repeating others' theory. The second is presenting the reason to oppose their theory. First is repeating the other's theory. In verse number 22, Kanki rangda lane jikten tsemran de pena dina rikpa meba niki takochi shikcha shenle shenjung wayan jikten paye tojo de tena shenle kemen dina rikpa chishik. So ordinary humanity. So this is now coming back to the repeating the other's theory in order to give a good reasoning so that we can actually counter argue it. Ordinary humanity, you say, takes common sense as truth. So what we call conventional truth, yeah? To what avail, therefore, is this philosophy? That things arise from other than themselves is evident to all, and therefore it is true. What need have we of reasoning? So this is now the worldly way of looking at things is considered authentic. Everybody says the worldly way of looking at it is what everybody sees or everybody accepts. From the worldly point of view, when people in the worldly sense or outlook see this way, they have what is called authentic view or authentic way of looking at it. This is called valid cognition in the worldly view. Valid cognition means authentic. What is genuine? What is acceptable to the conventional world? The worldly point of view is also authentic. Yeah? It is also valid. That is what they are saying, trying to say. Then if the reason are not needed, you are relying on the worldly sense. According to the worldly, what do the real worldly sense reveal? It is said here that the worldly mind see production from other causes. So worldly people always says he did this, she did this, they did this. They always point finger, other causing something. This is understood by world. Therefore, from the worldly point of view, which we recognize as a valid on a relative level, because we can't go against the world, what is the use of this reasoning to oppose it? So the arguing, saying what you're arguing, what you're presenting is going against the world that we all accept. From the worldly point of view, we have ample evidence of production from others. That's what everybody says, everything, because they because they believe that everything comes from something other than itself. Reasoning to the contrary is useless. So that is first we have to that is their argument. Yeah. So then we have to reason to counter-argue that. This has three parts. First is presenting classification of true truths, because the worldly people have no concept of true truth, relative and ultimate truth. Yeah. So first we have to present the classification of true truth in order to refute worldly vision as valid, because worldly view is only valid on worldly level, but on ultimate level it is not valid. And the second is, therefore, in the ultimate context, worldly vision does not harm. Yeah, so therefore, an ultimate sense, worldly view is not does not harm. So we have to create three tiers. Yeah, three tiers. What's good at accepting the worldly view, relative level, because on the relative level, and at what ultimate level. And third, explaining specific object that can be harmed by worldly view. There are a number of cases where the worldly view is the main problem because one holds the wrong view. So these are the three sub-points. Of these, the first one is presenting classification of true truth in order to worldly vision as valid, because we have to first of all present the concept of true truth, relative truth, and ultimate truth. The first is presenting definition in general, the relative and ultimate truth, yeah. And second is explaining examples individually what each of these two truths are. So that's very important. Of this, first one is presenting the definition in general, the definition of relative truth and ultimate truth. Now, this is beautifully captured in this next verse. Ngui Gun Yang Da Zumba Tongwa Yi Ngui Nye Ngui Nyi Nen Zimbrin Yur Yang Da Tongya Kanyi Tenyi De Tongwa Zumba Kunzab Dembra Sung. So this is now giving the definition of relative truth, yeah? It says that all object, I have changed the translation a bit, all object may be seen in truth or in delusion, yeah? So you can see the actual truth as it is, and as in delusion. So my own writing is so tiny. Yes. So all objects may be seen in truth or in the opposite, which is the delusion. The objects are recognize possessing two identities. Two identity, I should translate. They said they thus possess a twin identity. I would say the objects are recognized possessing twin identities. So two identities. So twin identity is, one is truth, one is the delusion. Yeah, the Buddha said that ultimate truth is what is seen correctly. So that's the truth. The wrongly seen is called all concealing truth. All concealing truth they have translated, but I call deceptive truth. The wrongly seen is the deceptive truth. One is truth, one is deceptive truth. Yeah, relative truth is called deceptive truth. It's only truth to the ordinary, but this is they are deceived by their very truth. So now this is from this point of view, there is an explanation of the truth. The reason for this is that the argument they have presented here is that there is no need of all those logical reasoning because we can establish things from the worldly view. This refers to direct perception and inferential cognition. This is logically speaking. When you see something, you can either see directly or inferentially to establish something is valid. Any ordinary living being has valid cognition. Valid cognition means you see as it is. For instance, in the case of looking at a visible form, we have eye consciousness, and this is considered valid when it comes to seeing visible forms. In the same way, we have valid cognition of ear consciousness, valid cognition of nose consciousness, valid cognition of self-awareness, valid cognition of mind consciousness. We also have inferential. So that's the. If you see blue with the eyes, so seeing blue as blue, which everybody agrees is blue, so this is called valid, You can't argue with others saying it's red when everybody sees blue. So that's called direct valid cognition, direct perception sometimes. And we also have the inferential cognition. Inferential cognition that comes into play when things cannot be directly perceived. This cognition is considered authentic in the worldly sense. You can tell, for instance, if the smoke alarm goes off, even though you don't see the fire, you can tell there is fire, or there's something like that. Often there's no really fire. So something else, depending what it is sensing. And so the inferential cognition that comes into play, things cannot be directly perceived, but we still use sensing devices that from which you can. Usually they say that when you see the smoke, that's the inferential cognition of the existence of fire somewhere. Fire somewhere. These cognitions are considered authentic in the worldly sense. By relying on these, we can understand things properly according to them. There's no need for all this reasoning. So they say we can see as it is, one directly perceiving, other through inferentially. So they're talking about that. In order to distinguish between worldly sense and ultimate sense, because the worldly sense is the deceptive truth and ultimate sense is the ultimate sense, one has to know the difference between the two truths. If you don't think in terms of two truths, you will mix them up. It is quite common in philosophical examination for people to mix up worldly and ultimate sense. If you can't differentiate, you will reach rather confusing conclusion. Hence the important study in order to distinguish between the two truths. One give a direct answer. Direct answer given in the end is what you consider as valid cognition in the worldly sense is not valid when it comes to looking from, at the ultimate nature of things. Mode of reality and mode of appearance, they call. Nangluk and neluk. The nangluk means where it appears to you is relatively true, but the mode of reality is not quite contrary to the way it appears to you. Valid cognition worldly cognition is valid for the conventional truth. Conventionally, it is true. It is limited to what appears and does not deal with the actual mode of being. It does not show the mode of being means as actually it is. Therefore, what is considered valid cognition in worldly sense is of no use for what we're discussing here. So therefore, because they were saying that you have to accept in the worldly sense things come from something, So he says that is only the deceptive truth. It appears that way and everybody think that way, but in reality it's quite different. With regard to the true truth, there are two ways of looking at it: correct seeing and incorrect seeing. Now, this is talking even relative truth. There's a correct relative truth, and there's incorrect relative truth. So this is the correct seeing is correct relative truth. Incorrect seeing is incorrect relative truth. As a result of these two ways of looking at things, we will reach one or other of the two different conclusions. One of the conclusion is the ultimate sense truth, and the other is the conventional truth. That which is seen through correct seeing is ultimate truth. That which is grasped by false seeing is relative or conventional truth. So that's the deceptive truth. At this point, we need to find out what correct seeing means and what is meant by false seeing. The term correct seeing refers to a realization of noble beings, Arya, who comes about as a result of contemplation or meditation once he attains the knowledge, realizing correctly the ultimate nature. The knowledge which realizes the ultimate nature of things correctly is known as correct seeing. Or other ways of looking at things are considered false seeing. That's what the deceptive truth is. The deceptive truth is. From the brief explanation, it will be obvious that what the other schools refer to as valid cognition in the worldly sense comes under the category of false seeing. Until one reaches the wisdom realizing emptiness, ultimate nature, all things of perception, knowledge, understanding come under the category of false seeing. These are the definition of the true truths. So one is a relative truth. Relative truth means it's only relatively true. Yeah. Relatively true to the four conventional truth, how they see it. So that's what we call relative. Relative means it's relative to from where you look at, from what causes condition makes you to form the opinion. So word relative says it is pretty much sort of contingent, means it got depend on many other contingent, It doesn't have any ultimate truth in itself. So that's it actually talking about what the definition of the relative and ultimate truth. Next is now explaining them individually. These two individually. This has two. First is conventional truth is explained through divisions, and second is ultimate truth explained through an example. First, the conventional truth explained through divisions also has two divisions. First is division on the basis of ordinary being's mind. It's very important now. We're coming to nitty-gritty details. Second is division on the basis of ordinary and noble beings. The first, on the basis of ordinary being's mind, has four subdivisions. The first is subjective false seeing subjective false seeing is divided into two. Second is object, also divided into correct and incorrect conventional truth. Third, the second means the incorrect conventional truth does not exist even in the worldly context. Even the worldly context doesn't exist. Fourth is used as an example to apply the actual answer. So of this. The first of these four is the subjective false seeing is divided into two. Subjective false seeing, yeah? So this is explained in the verse number 24. 통화 준방 넘버 2데 왕보 살당 왕보 견된 no 견된 왕제 남기 해반에 왕보링 유희도 로버런더스. Now, this translation is a bit of a problem for me, so I retranslated that. 통화 준방 남방이 되되 it literally says false seeing has two aspects. Yeah? False seeing has two aspects. Deluded vision has, it is said, double face. It says so. Translation. What are those? Due to clear and impaired sense organs. Yeah. So what are the two aspects? False seeing. It's already false seeing. False seeing also has two subdivision. Clear sense organ and impaired sense organ. Yeah. Due to that. Then third is the perception of those with impaired sense organs are considered to be mistaken in comparison with the clear sense organ. Yeah. So that's for instance, when it goes to says whether the sense organ is defective or non-defective depends on temporary causes such as illness. For instance, when the eye is impaired, what it sees is not considered correct in the worldly sense, they say. Yeah? Worldly sense also, they say, oh, you got an eye problem, The ensuing knowledge obtained through the faculty, sense organ, will differ from that attained by one who has an unimpaired eye faculty. For example, when the eye sense faculty is affected by jaundice, instead of seeing a white conch shell as white, it will see yellow, and white snowy mountains will be seen as yellow. Or you can even take some substance. All of a sudden you see one as two, and top as the bottom, or inside or out. They call mind-altering substance. They call it mind-altering substance. Or if you just do a lot of weightlifting, all of a sudden you start having and going like this. The whole room is spinning. So like that. What is meant here is within the false seeing there are two divisions. Within the false seeing itself there are two subdivisions. But compared with ultimate correct seeing, both these kinds of knowledge are considered false seeing. Yeah. So both of these are false seeing. So you might have two group of people having completely different view of the same thing. One thing is right, other thing is wrong, and vice versa. But from the enlightened point of view, both are relatively wrong. Because how they are marred by their own eye-like impaired senses. First, we make the division on the basis of the seeing, but the object is also divided into correct and incorrect conventional truth. This is explained in the next verse. Now, these are very, very important to understand why things that appear to us are not identical to what actually is. And the mode of reality is different from mode of appearance. We call deceptive truth. To the ordinary people, they think it's truth, but they are deceiving themselves without knowing they are deceiving themselves. So that's why it's called truth. It's a truth to them because they don't know it's a deceptive. To them, it's a truth, So next verse goes to say, Neba mebe wangbo trugnamki, sungwa kanshi jikden ki dokte. Jikden nile den lamane, jikden nile loba number sha. So all and everything the six unimpaired sense grasp. So said everything that the six sense organs that are all sound within the worldly experience of the world is held as true according to the world. World sees, I see a blue something, you all see blue, and we hear the Russian person speaking Russian language, we all say Russian. So we all sort of agree we all say that's true according to the world. The rest according to the world is false. Yeah. So when you understand that, objects are grasped by two different levels of knowledge, also two different levels of conventional truth. So there are two levels. One is correct, other is incorrect. This leads to the conclusion that both non-defective knowledge and the object it perceives a correct conventional truth. Both the knowledge from the defective sense faculty and the things that are grasped by this knowledge are incorrect conventional truth. So we have correct and incorrect both from the subjective point of view and from the object point of view. So this shows that there are even the deceptive truth is divided into two, depending on the fitness or lack of the sense organs, or maybe even the mind itself. In many cases, the mind itself. They say he's mad, he's crazy, because then they see things which everybody don't see. When they are temporarily mad by anger or temporarily mad by a fit of something, then they are like that. But a few hours later, they just thankfully they become sober. So the third is the second does not exist even in the worldly sense. Now, this is the second one. Mishiniki rabki mudikchen namgi dani chichin takbarang. So this the self as it's imagined by Tirtika. Tirtika means the kind of extreme view holders, what we call heretics. The self as imagined by the Tirtika, because they imagine the self as being permanent. The soul, the Atma, is being permanent and unitary and independent. So these are the three things they imagine. They enveloped as they are in ignorant sleep, because they think of those things, their self being like that, because they are totally trapped in the ignorance. And mirages and tricks of sight are all construed as real. So just as the wrong view holders think the self is permanent and unitary and autonomous, it is just like the mirages and tricks of eye, people who have optical illusion, optical problems, they see things, all are construed as real, though they have no reality in ordinary experience. So this explains the second type of conventional truth, which is the false seeing. False seeing. false seeing by people who see mirages or things like that as real. And that is, of course, there are other causes and conditions that makes things appear. Likewise, people who hold the wrong views as self being permanent and autonomous and unitary, because they are also conditioned by that sleep of ignorance. So the incorrect false seeing as a result of deceptive mind consciousness, incorrect false seeing as a result of deceptive sense consciousness. One is sense impaired perception. Other is consciousness impaired by wrong view. So the one is the wrong view cause perception. One is sense impaired cause perception. Sense, yeah. From the worldly point of view, that means that when you are in the correct mental condition, you view things properly. This is the basis of the mind consciousness. With respect to the sense consciousness, it is whether are defective or correct sense faculties produces it. The first one refers to the deceptive mind consciousness, which is illustrated by the example of sleep of ignorance. The theory is presented by the heretics afflicted by sleep of ignorance because they think self is permanent and unitary and independently existing. Are part of are part of the second type of conventional truth, which is the incorrect conventional truth. Yeah, so incorrect conventional truth. Most of our wrong views are incorrect conventional truth. Not even correct, even conventionally. So if you think the conventional truth is the only truth, that's wrong. Even in the conventional truth, got two levels. Two levels. Earlier, we were talking about knowledge arising from defective sense faculties. This does not refer to sense consciousness only. The mind consciousness also comes under the second type of conventional truth, because if one is greatly afflicted by ignorance, one will tend to invent many different theories that are incorrect and therefore not in accordance with the mode of being. Because people, when they are hijacked by negative thoughts, they see things, they just believe things. There's no trace of anything out there. There's no trace that there's a snake in the room. But the person who's frightened, who sees a little stripe of rope and he thinks there's a snake, he's jumping up and down, So the wrong view is worse than visual, sensorially impaired problem. Sensory impaired person doesn't suffer unless he looks at something. Mentally impaired person doesn't have to look. Whatever he thinks is deceptive. So that shows the severity of the problem, how the incorrect relative truth is. Most of the people's mental problems, are all mental problems, impaired by their own mind, by the affliction. So, therefore, the theories you have presented are considered to be incorrect conventional truth from this point of view. That is because they are objects of deceptive mind consciousness due to strong ignorance, self-grasping, permanence, and so all of the wrong view. Yeah, generally speaking, all sentient beings are afflicted by ignorance. Ignorance is the root of all defilements. We can divide ignorance into two types. Spontaneously arising ignorance. This is innate ignorance. Innate ignorance, meaning that we don't even have to think. We don't even question I am me or body is me. We just think I am me or body is me. So this kind of innate ignorance, and then another is imputed ignorance. Yeah. Spontaneously arising ignorance has been around since beginner's time. The ignorance leads also to simultaneously arising self-grasping. So one straight away grasp to everything as me or mine. The kind of ignorance is not based on any doctrine. So that innate ignorance is not because you're learning a doctrine or philosophy. It's just inborn. You're born with that ignorance. It's not, you didn't go to a school and they taught you that. Like the doctors say, you're born with disease, like that. We are born with this innate ignorance. The other kind of ignorance, which is imputed ignorance, which is based on philosophical schools of doctrine. In the case of self, it may be said that every living being grasps the self as truly existing. This is true. This is grasping to self as true and real and permanent. The self is seen as truly existing without much explanation. Most people have don't even think, but they think they are them. The real grasping of true existence of self is known as spontaneously arising self-grasping. But when we start to follow various doctrines, we begin to add new ones to this self. The self is true because it is separate from the aggregates, because it remains permanent even life after life, and so on. So that they say there is a true self that actually continue to exist. So the permanence, either it's a permanence, even though it's not body, but still it's permanent. So they are conceptualizing. Conceptual. It is a conceptualizing, or imputed means conceptualize. Conceptual. The spontaneously one is not even conceptualized. Considered to be one form of incorrect convention because they are based on a deceptive mind consciousness. The other type of incorrect conventional truth consists of objects which are perceived with defective sense faculties, such as magical illusion, mirage, reflection, dream, and so on. In this case, both illusion and mirage are given as an example of previous one. Because illusion and mirage both may basically visual, It's a visual, so you have to look to see illusion or mirage. And so there's not a really big problem. Whereas the innately developed wrong views, you don't even have to look. You don't even have to listen. You just have this innately developed wrong view. One is based on the wrong doctrine. The other one is based on defective sense faculty. These things do not exist even in the worldly point of view. So therefore, talking about when you say everything is worldly is true, so there are many things that even worldly people can't even fathom it. This means that if an ordinary being is asked whether his self is separate from other things or whether it remains permanent, he will not understand. He start having doubts. Then he really have difficulty. He will not consider it. From the point of view. For him, this way of looking at things is not correct. That is according to the ordinary worldly sense. In the same way, things such as magical illusion, dreams, are also considered incorrect from a worldly point of view. So they also know there are some things are incorrect even in a worldly point of view. Oh, they said that's a dream, that's an illusion, that's your apparition. These are things that we see from the worldly point of view, yet they are not correct even in the worldly sense. They come under the category of false conventional truth. So the second incorrect conventional truth that does not exist even in the worldly sense. So the fourth one is this is used as an example to apply the actual answer. Now, having divided these different categories of conventional truth, ultimate truth, and within the conventional truth is a correct unconventional truth and incorrect conventional truth, as well as visually or sensorily impaired perception, as well as doctrinally sort of conceived wrong views. So now, having presented all these different categories of perception, this can be used as an example, so that the actual answer, the Chandrakirti's actual answer to all of that previous one will be now much clearer. Migne rarup chingi mikbai ravrip me she lanu minchetar. Is whatever is perceived with dimmed, defective sight, defective eye, has no validity compared with what is seen by healthy eyes. Just so a mind deprived of spotless wisdom has no power to contradict a pure, untainted mind. So this example is to illustrate, so that's why I'm saying to use this example, this analogy to illustrate the difference. The actual answer means that even in the worldly sense, we do not say that whatever is seen by the worldly sense, whether correct or incorrect, is truly existing. Even in the worldly sense, there are two categories. We don't consider everything that is seen is existence. In this case, there are two examples that proceed with clear sight and those proceed with unclear sight. It is said that one with unclear sight will see hairs in the space in the same place, where the one with correct eyesight will see either light or darkness. Yeah, people with some optical problem, they can see hair dropping or whatever. Kenshin says, I won't say we see space. When we say that we see space, we really see a color, either light or darkness. From the worldly point of view, the vision that we see, the hair is not correct. There was a story of a young bride who comes with a bride at the home, and she thinks she's starting to working. She started to take over the kitchen duties and various things. The mother is a little bit sort of like relegated, on the corner. Mother-in-law, I should say. Mother-in-law is relegated. She always thinks that now that her son has brought this woman, she's sort of not as loved as a mother she was before. So she starts really thinking there's something against her from her son as well as this young bride, And so she just had paranoid, they want me gone or they want me dead or whatever, there was just that kind of feeling, and so she always thought that the soup or tea, whatever the daughter-in-law served, was full of hair. She put all her hair in there, and the mother wouldn't drink or eat anything, complaining that this daughter-in-law is putting all this stuff in her food, and complained to her son. And first the son couldn't, understand what it's all about, And then later on, she thought maybe he has maybe reason to suspect. Maybe she's a little bit there. There's a little bit competition between the two, So, and first, he trusted his mother. He was even sort of getting at the bride, saying, "Why do you do that? You have to be kind to my mother and this and that." The daughter-in-law has been trying her best, trying her best. She was trying her best, but it completely perceived by the mother-in-law as if she was putting all the stuff in her soup, and particularly her own hairs. When the son checked carefully, she wasn't putting any of her. She was trying to cook with, and her mother is always, complaining. So one sees, it wasn't a correct conventional truth. Correct conventional truth, because son thought it was maybe there was some kind of rivalry, and maybe she just doesn't want to serve her or whatever. She wouldn't get sick or whatever. But then first he sort of sided the mother, and even tried to just saying how she should be careful and be kind and so on. But when he really checked carefully, what his wife was doing. She was doing meticulous, doing her best, and there was clean as possible. And when he looked in the drink or food, there was not a single hair. But the mother kept complaining, it's full of hair. So when the mind is deluded by wrong views, this is what we call like the people who hold the wrong views, people who are heretical views, because she's angry or jealous or whatever. Then she keeps seeing things that was completely baseless. It was invalid. It was incorrect relative truth. But she was making it relative truth, correct relative truth. And to her deluded mind, it was. So talking about that. From the worldly point of view, vision that sees the hair is not correct. The vision that sees no hair is the correct. But the point is that what is viewed by the unclear side will not damage what is seen by the clear side. What is seen by the clear side is considered authentic or right by the worldly sense. In other words, we accept one and negate the other. This is used in answer with the previous arguments. So now that shows, even in a worldly sense, there is one that is correct, one is incorrect. So therefore, in an ultimate sense, the ultimate sense is a real correct truth. Ultimate truth is correct truth, and the relative truth is a deceptive truth. It doesn't mean, say, when I say, please pass the blue folder, you pass me blue folder, so it's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I wouldn't say that's not the blue, that's white. bring the blue. And of course we won't do that, But what it's saying is that you have to, in a relatively correct relative truth, there's no argument. But there is an other than the relatively correct relative truth, or relatively wrong, incorrect relative truth. So mostly we are relying on incorrect relative truth as a correct relative truth. So that means everything is relative to something else. Nothing is by itself, anything by itself. And this is very important. When we do that, there's a lot of room for us to enter the middle way. Middle way is when you know the relative truth is only an incorrect relative truth. So therefore, your relative truth is re-relatable. You can relate to a different way. Very flexible, Very flexible, When you're entering middle way, it's very flexible, because it's not one thing that's fundamentally correct truth, because the relative truth is only relative. So if someone says, "I'm tall," it's probably true because they're short. If someone says, "I'm fat," probably true. They're thin. I shouldn't think, "Oh, I'm not fat. Why should he call me true? I lost only 5 kilos. He thinks I'm too fat." So, what's the problem? And this is relatively true because he hasn't seen anybody bigger than you in the room, But wait until someone else bigger than you shows up, then of course you will be relatively thin. This happened, to me in Brisbane, during the World Expo in 2000. What is it? 2000? What do you call it? That year? I think it's 19 something in Brisbane Expo. They say there's a tallest man in the world in a marquee. So I went in there, to meet the tallest man in the world, So when I met the tallest man in the marquee, I become the second tallest. So easy to become second tallest man in the world. But actually, I wasn't second tallest man in the world. I was second tallest man in the tent. Nor was he tallest man in the world. He was tallest man in the tent. There was no truly existing tallest man by himself. So think like that. It then makes ourselves, it's only relative, come on. And then we can be kind to ourselves so that we don't. If somebody says something, maybe it's true from their incorrect relative truth point of view. Don't tell them you got incorrect relative truth. You can say they got correct relative truth from their own point of view. But from other people's point of view, they may have got incorrect relative truth because he hasn't got eyes. He's sleeping in ignorance. So how can he say the correct relative truth? Yeah, this the correct. They can't see the correct relative truth because they're seeing the incorrect relative truth and imposing that on each other. Suffering is created through these kind of wrong views. Middle way means how not to suffer, how to be kind to oneself and others, and practice bodhicitta. So this is 6th bodhicitta. You cultivate bodhicitta for knowing, this is how they perceive, and therefore have compassion. Don't react to it as that is truly existing wrong view. That's even very important. Even someone has an incorrect relative truth, you don't have to see it's a truly existing incorrect relative truth. Even the incorrect relative truth is a relative, So you can agree to disagree, they call it. Agree to disagree. Agree to disagree. So that's a good analogy. Second is now division on the basis of ordinary and noble being. Now we come to the distinguish between ordinary beings, perception, and the noble beings. Timuran shindripsi kunzop des. Tegan chuma dembar nang de ne nature of phenomena enshrouded by ignorance is all concealed, I call it. All concealed, which means deceptive. Kunzop in Tibetan is all concealed. All means all deceived. All deceived. Kun means all. Zop means deceived. Concealed means you're concealed from seeing the truth. You're concealed from seeing the truth. So you're not able to see. The reason it's a relative truth, reason it's a deceptive truth, is because the nature of ignorance, the nature of phenomena is completely enveloped or obscured by ignorance. So you can't see the thing because it's all covered. It's all covered by the incorrect view. Means, but what this ignorance contrives appears as true. Instead of seeing what is actually hidden or concealed, what it actually appears is contrived by ignorance actually appears as true, like the hair, So because of anger or jealousy or insecurity, the mother keeps seeing all these things as true, And she wasn't drinking the soup or the tea or whatever because she keeps seeing these things. And a lot of people, if you have some particular issues with some things, that's what's happening. That's what's happening. What is it caused by? She was caused by maybe insecurity and jealousy, and likewise, anything that we have this kind of a problem, either desire or jealousy, or insecurity, or fear, or anger, or desire, or attachment, or unrealistic expectation, these things could then conceal the truth and makes the untrue appearance and make us believe as that is the true. That's a very important way of knowing things. So, kunzop denshe tuba tesung de chiomari kyube ngene kunzop du. And so the Buddha spoke of all conceiting truth. Means Buddha spoke about the deceptive truth. Buddha spoke about the deceptive truth. Because the word deceptive and truth, see these two things, deceptive truth, And the people who tell lies, very good at telling lies. This is the truth, So that's the deceptive truth, It deceives everyone and deceives themselves, of course, many times. how successful they deceive. So it's talking about likewise, ordinary people are themselves completely in the dark and from seeing the actual truth. But they actually make it the deceptive truth as a true. And therefore the Buddha spoke the severity of the harm caused by the deceptive truth. Because without talking about the falsity of the deceptive truth, you can never talk about the virtue of the ultimate truth. See, ultimate truth is also relative. Ultimate truth is also, they say, without relying on the deceptive truth, you could not understand the nature of the ultimate reality even. Yeah, this is reality. So, therefore, and thus contrived, phenomena are all concealing. So, meaning all phenomena are contrived. Chuamarikyube meaning artificially, solid by the artificiality or fabricated as something, fabricated. So what it's really saying is that one that is seen by ordinary mind is called conventional truth because it is not just seen, it is also imputed as being truly existent. Yeah, so because it appears as true, even though it doesn't exist at all. So it's concealing the non-existent, not truly existing, but it's making it appear as it's a truly existing as produced by other. So every single litigation, every single legal case is trying to prove it is done by him. And actually concealing the real truth which is interdependently originated. Yeah, so the actual truth is completely concealed, and the deceptive truth is now presented as the truth. Both parties think they got the truth. But yet, neither of them acting as they have truth, because they don't feel just, they don't think true, they don't feel free, they feel liberal, they just feel deluded. Because they're deceived. They're deceived by their own. So, the truly existing aspect is added onto the appearance. So, the appearance has been imputed as a true and independent, permanent, and autonomously existing. On the other hand, noble beings sees just the appearance without added imputation of true existence. The enlightened being sees the appearance as impermanent, as dependent, and not unitary. Many factors. So we can look at something when you have this kind of view. If you understand the law of dependent origination, we can see, even no matter what the person is talking about or angry about, the thing itself is not there. They're talking about bird track, saying bird flew from here and I can't handle this anymore and it's dirtied my space. There's a bird constantly flying. Bird flew and left. It's impermanent. Traceless bird track. Impermanent, but keep seeing bird permanently there, So they say they got a problem. They're saying the problem still existing because they think it's permanent. It is not. It doesn't exist at all. So therefore one is imputing that as something is truly there, permanently there, independently there. That's what makes the truth become concealed. The truth is concealed. What make yourself and others believe is revealed. Yeah, make oneself and others believe is revealed as the truth. So they just see the appearance, which is the appearance is also dependent origination, because it appears like that way. If you think this point of view, if you look from this point of view, you look at that point of view, and so the appearance keeps changing. Because if the appearance changing, there's nothing permanent, nothing independent, nothing truly existing. If you see the same thing from all 10 directions, then you have a concern. So, in Tibetan, the object which appears to the noble being is called kunzop. Kunzop means deceptive truth. The noble being sees as empty of inherent existence. That's the truth. But he can see also how it's deceiving the worldly people, as it does truly exist, independent exists, permanent exists. That which appears to an ordinary being is kunzop dempa. The object that appears to worldly beings is known as, in English, as conventional truth. Conventional truth. Sometimes we translate deceptive truth. I think the word deceptive truth is very powerful, isn't it? Conventional truth seems like everybody will. It's a deceptive truth. Straight away say, what is the deceptive truth? So means relative. Is deceived by. So this is the distinction that is made between what is seen by noble beings and what is seen by worldly beings. First, there are two levels, and then it is further divided into three. Conventional truth can be seen two ways. First, there is a division between the conventional truth experienced by noble being and that experienced by the ordinary being. Then there is further two levels with respect to ordinary being. One with afflicted eyesight will see the cup as it is, but perhaps filled with hairs. So that is the one who has an eye problem, not a mental problem. One with the clear sight, which is the son looked at it because he not that his mother's eye was bad, but her mother's had a different eye. She putting a glass on maybe. One with the clear sight will see the cup with the same shape and form, but without hairs. But he will see it as truly existent. He will see the cup as truly existent. The noble, so he sees the lack of hair, but the cup is truly existing. Cup is truly existing. The person who has the optical problem, they see hair in the cup. Hair in the cup. So one sees the hair in the cup, other's cup is truly existent. Yeah, they're both relatively incorrect, ultimately incorrect. Sorry, noble being. Yeah, the noble being, the noble being in post-meditative session will see the cup. They wouldn't argue, say, this is not cup, I saw nothing. They don't want to. They don't want to waste somebody's day. Oh yes, let it say it's a cup. So wouldn't argue. Out of compassion. Out of compassion, yeah, that's a cup. They wouldn't say empty. It's a cup. It's empty. What are you talking about? But just the appearance of the cup. They just see the appearance of the cup. They don't see the truly existing cup. They don't see the truly existing cup. These days, all the disposable one is really useful. Put in your disposable cup, and a very nice china, much better than this one. This is relatively good. This is relatively very, very good disposable. So this is a relatively disposable cup when it breaks. But the other coffee cups, even though you can use it again, but nobody uses it twice. They think it's, no, it should be, you're keeping yours, you're miserly or something. But actually you can give a wash and use it again. But most people think, no, it should be, it will truly existing disposable cup. So the noble being sees the cup, but just the appearance of the cup, just the fabricated aspect that is not truly existing. Even this cup would not be truly existing. They would not see it truly existing. They'll see the clay, they'll see the potter, they'll see the paint, they'll see all sorts of things because put together. So they don't see the truly existing cup, permanently existing cup, unitarily existing cup. They don't see that. They'll see all sorts of non-cups that is part of this and how it is become. During the meditative session. They already see that no truly cup exists in the post-meditation list. During the meditation session, the noble beings see the cup as empty of inherent existence. So, you can see why we can't see things as empty of inherent existence. Even enlightened beings have to be in meditation. Even enlightened beings have to enter into meditation to see everything as empty of inherent existence. So we are not often in meditation, even in meditation, So where got the chance for us to see everything as empty of inherent existence? For us, everything is truly existing, because we're so habituated by the karmic conditioning. Yeah, karmic conditioning. So therefore. This is very, very compassionate teaching, You cannot teach compassion without understanding this. This is compassion without understanding emptiness fails. Compassion which understand the emptiness, then you practice compassion with the wisdom. And then you can impart compassion with wisdom that doesn't sort of burn your finger or that doesn't fatigue your mind or body or anything. Because you give nothing. You give nothing truly existent. If you gave anything, it's totally dependent on other person receiving it, and you having received it that yourself from somebody else. You never had anything that is yours. So when you're able to think like that, you realize even what you did is not truly existing generosity. What you did is not truly existing tolerance. Okay. It's very important because people otherwise say, I practice tolerance, this is what I get, type of thing. Then they get really even more worked up because they think their cup like tolerance is truly existent. So they have to go quickly in meditation, try to get back that forgettable realization of empty of inherent existence. So, when it says that the noble being sees the cup as empty of inherent existence in meditation, means of course when the noble being do in post meditationally, they see as the merely appearance of the cup. And they will not argue with the conventional world for the sake of not destroying their day, ruining their day. But of course, he is almost in the meditation to see. By the way, it is nothing. Because they are like in the meditative state, but they have come to be with the sentient being to help them, and maybe slowly teach them because they don't understand that. So therefore, there are many levels of looking at things, and we must know the context of what we are looking at. It's very. These are the why middle way. You've got to enter into this way of thinking. Then it helps you behaviorally practice compassion. Even you practice compassion, your compassion is not truly existent. Your compassion is interdependently. Doesn't mean your compassion doesn't exist. Your compassion exists dependently. It's a dependent origination. Your compassion is only useful if someone is suffering. So even if you feel angry, your anger is not self-produced, okay? Don't be harsh on yourself. Or saying anger is not produced by someone else's fault, okay? It's many other factors. So that's why the other production. If it's produced by somebody else, we are extreme view holders. If it's not produced independent by the other, we are centrist. Yeah, we follow the middle way. Middle way means we are centrist view holder. We holding the main view that saves us from suffering. You will see how quickly when you have understood and heard these teachings and start to think like this in various situations, not making it complicated, but really try to experiment this knowledge and apply it. We were saying that people who understand emptiness will find tears welling in their eyes. How greatly uplifting and healing that it is. Not just when you're listening and reading, but apply it in situation. Then you have reason to have the tear to be dried. Otherwise, you have teary eyes, but never able to dry it. So then you will not suffer long. Why? You are behaviorally entering into the middle way and practicing compassion. Compassion with understanding of emptiness is compassion, is great compassion. Compassion without emptiness is not great, maybe small, very miserable compassion. Yeah, some compassionate people become more miserable. They were compassionate for some time. After that, they become more miserable. Why? Because they lacked the great compassion, which is the emptiness. Emptiness, discerning mind, empowers you to practice compassion. Even your compassion is interdependently originated. This is a very important point. We're really looking at it. Now that completes the division of the basis of ordinary noble being. And we have now completed conventional truth explained through divisions. Now we will look at the ultimate truth. Second is ultimate truth explained through an example. Which is covered in this next verse. Rabrib tui trashi lasobe ngo loba kanshi namdaba. Teni dani kandu migdabe tone teni teshin dirshiki. See, those who suffer from eye disease or optical problems will falsely think they see black lines or other things. Yeah, the hair you're talking about. But healthy eyes will see what is the case. Suchness, we should understand, is similar to this. Yeah. So this is example how ultimate truth can be explained through this very example. So, which is the correct one? Cup with floating hair, or cup without floating hairs? Which should be considered the suchness in the worldly point of view? The one without floating hair is considered correct because the person with unimpaired eyesight sees it. It is considered to be suchness or actual mode of being. In the same way, it should be understood in the case of ultimate point of view. This means that which is seen by a noble being should be considered as suchness rather than that which is seen by a worldly mind. From this example, one can form an idea of what this suchness is. The actual mode of being is the object seen by one with correct seeing. Thus, the ultimate truth is explained through this example. It is not explained in much detail here because the whole sixth chapter is extended explanation of the ultimate truth, which is 150 more verses. This has two aspects: selflessness of phenomena and selflessness of person. This is contrary to what is seen as the worldly sense as the true existence. What correct seeing sees, which is the emptiness aspect, is to be understood as suchness. To establish this fact, we need to be able to reject the argument that consider what we refer to as a correct seeing just as a different way of seeing things. The fact that we refer to this as correct seeing does not thereby prove that the object seen by noble being is the correct one. The worldly object may also be the correct one. The example is given in order to reject the proposition. Even the worldly sense, we make a distinction between objects seen by clear eyesight, which is considered as a correct object, and that is seen by impaired eyesight, which is considered incorrect. With this, we have completed presenting the classification of true truth in order to refute the worldly vision as valid. So when you have the good understanding of relative truth and ultimate truth, which whenever you talk to people about emptiness, even you have really comfortable, you sit with it comfortable. When you explain to it, always need to talk about relative truth. Relatively speaking, this is long, this is short. And you can say it, because long is put next to short, is you can see the one is long, one is short, And if you bring a third one, which is just maybe longer to this, shorter to the other, then of course it changes totally. Then with the relation to the first one, this is long. With relation to the next one, it is short again. Like I and the Pakistani man in the youth, I was really thinking like that, Because, when I was in the tent, standing next to him, took a photo. I still have the photo. So he was the tallest man in the world, I'm told, and then it didn't take a lot for me to become the second tallest man, because there was nobody else. But if somebody else shows up, it looked really miserable for the tallest guy. He has a custom-made boots, and I don't know how. He could have looked like that. He's like 7 foot something. He has to stand there whole day. He's an exhibit from Pakistan government. They have to make a big tent for him. So everything becomes very, very interesting. So when you think about you are right or wrong, or somebody says you are this or that, relatively true. You are stupid. You are stupid quite a lot of the time. Particularly when we're reading something like this, shows how deceptively deluded we are most of the time, thinking he is truly existing, he's angry, he's arrogant, he's bossy. We think they are truly existing. We don't realize it is only relative to who you have known or who you have not worked with, So it's only relative. When you do that, then you can quickly drop this fundamentalist view. This middle way, means not holding this rigid view, and you can just go in the middle and quickly drop the wrong view and develop an alternate view. When you do that, behaviorally, you say, it it is only interdependent. It's only dependently originated. It is relative to where I was, what he was, or what she was, or this, and then we saw that. But if I don't bring all of these factors, there's no talk, no concept. So as a result, you can disown that bad view, wrong view, and then you don't suffer. You don't suffer the wrong view. How long does it take to clear your mind or make some kind of different opinions change? As long as you think of relative truth, ultimate truth, in this context, you quickly, you quickly give yourself a break from sufferings. This is not philosophy. This is compassion made simple or complicated. I think this is compassionate practice made simple. This is how to make your complicated compassion simpler. This is how to actually spoon feed yourself, how to live kindly without being too rigid to yourself or against others. When you have that, that's why Chandrakirti at the very beginning, he paid homage to compassion, so that this trouble of writing all this curly philosophical argument will empower people to actually get how to practice compassion towards most sentient beings who are holding deceptive truth as the truth. So whether they're behaving this way or that way or whatever, you can impart with compassion. For they do not know, you do not, make it worse by throwing stick or stone at them. You practice compassion to them. Yourself meditating on emptiness, remember? Empty of inherent existence. From yourself, it's just an inherent, it's just a mirage, But for them, it's not just mirage. It is a truly existing. And they don't want it to go away and move this view. And you can see how long people suffer. If somebody was suppressing or you can see exploiting somebody or taking advantage, we will say he's exploiting me or this regime is exploiting me. But this wrong view is exploiting us most of the time. Wrong view is the one that is harming us incessantly, particularly the innate wrong view on top of the imputed wrong view. Chandrakirti is a realized master. He's not writing a thesis to make people give a headache. He's writing so that headache will be overcome. Headache will be overcome. But we need to get into his way of thinking. And when you understand that his ideas, then you can see this way of explaining the teaching, because the teaching is pointing. They say pointing directly to the nature of the mind. Oh, I've never heard of that before. I haven't met anyone who have shown me the nature of the mind. But this teaching helps me, helps me to see what is the nature of mind, the deluded mind and unsullied mind. Yeah, unsullied mind, because the deluded mind, the unsullied mind is in the deluded mind. So don't reject the deluded mind altogether. It is the separating the wrong views from the deluded mind, then gains the clarity of mind without being impeded by the deluded views. So without looking at the deluded sentient being's sufferings, you do not develop compassion, let alone with emptiness. So when we understand the 6th chapter, it will boost our fitness to practice bodhicitta. That's the whole idea. This one says generation 6th bodhicitta. Of course, this is the 6th bodhicitta or 6th bhumi-dwelling bodhisattvas. But we just even marginally hearing a little bit about it will empower us to practice bodhicitta to sentient beings. For majority of them have no sign of waking from the sleep. And when you see that, and then whatever they do is completely pardonable, because you don't see what their wrongdoing is truly existing. Even the karmic predicament of somebody, you don't see him or her as permanently like that. It's so cruel to think that someone is like that always. They are impermanent sentient beings. Their suffering, their behavior, their one mistake or two mistakes are only perceived like the hairdrop. So, therefore, try to see someone with this kind bodhicitta compassion, and you will remove the cataract and not see them with that contemptuous view, that negative view, that uncompassionate view. That is middle way. You know? Middle way is not some kind of a tough subject. You know, there are only few schools, few students in a philosophy department can chew. It's not like that. It is the bread and butter of all practitioners who wanted to walk the path of the bodhisattvas. How to practice compassion with wisdom, discerning lack of inherent existence of things. And people mistakenly think it is self-produced, it is other-produced, truly existing because he did this, because I did this. And then think that's the end of the world. That kind of wrong view punish us, creates suffering more than any place, even in the hells. You know, there is no real, suffering that are not made in the mind. Nor is there nirvana or enlightenment other than this mop-up of the deceptive truth. And seeing deceptive truth as a deceptive truth is not deceptive. And then, when one is able to remember these teachings, then one actually has this kind of mechanism through which one can see things. Because we heard that verses, and it has born something in you. It has developed a concept in your mind, and you conceive the bodhicitta, loving kindness, compassion, altruism. But on top of that, wisdom discerning bodhicitta, compassion discerning bodhicitta. And when one is able to do that, of course, then it gives you the view, at least a kind of a momentary vision, what must be like to have the meditative equipoise realization of the sixth Bhumi-dwelling bodhisattvas. Yeah. So you just, almost like if you ask them to borrow their mind for a few minutes, and we had, oh wow, can I extend this? Can I upgrade this? Can I borrow this for 2 days? Yes, you got to go and retreat. You have to go and practice to develop and boost your discipline and meditation to dawn, and to allow this realization to dawn on you. Yeah. Then you can see the discipline, the renunciation, the contentment, the simplicity, the solitude. All of these are the causes that requires to practice calm abiding meditation. In that calm abiding meditation, then you develop this kind of insight. And then those who have develop this realization, then they don't lose it. They don't lose it. It's all like they don't lose it. They have the merit to think on this way of constituting the mind stream always. It doesn't go away. It isn't in the classroom. It isn't in the session. It isn't with the book. It has become reconstituted in your mind. How do you know? It has caused a lot of peace, a lot of restitution, a lot of peace and compassion and loving kindness to be able to practice that towards other beings. Like now that bodhicitta isn't a prayer you do at some time. No, it is a mentality. It is the way and attitude with which you think and view and radiate your concern towards others and pass. Then you can see why one is paying homage to compassion. If you pay homage to compassion, when you practice compassion, you have to do with sentient beings who are suffering, who hold this incorrect relative truth. You have to practice this compassion that is so worthy of paying homage to with sentient beings who are always holding incorrect relative truth. When it comes to practicing compassion with sentient beings who hold incorrect relative truth, we are not ready. We don't want to do it at all. We will withdraw. We freeze. That's see. There's no acquaintance. There's no familiarity. That is the where one really needs to practice. Even in retreat, you do 100,000 bodhicitta prayer. Even you do 100,000 four immeasurable prayer, or whatever you do. Those are just a formality of the retreat. But real substance of the retreat is to be able to be tender, to be able to be generous, to be able to be patient with exactly opposite sentient being, who are abrasive, who may be totally have a lot of not only optical illusion but mental illusion on top of that. So of course, when they have already a disability in a sensory, they already not only got the other disability, which is the grasping to seeing things as truly existing, independently existing, permanently existing. Now, when you have that kind of mentality, then you can see why teaching on the subjects such as the emptiness, this talking about the emptiness of phenomena on the ultimate level, therefore empowers us to. Firstly, we have to have heard the teachings. You see, when we heard the teachings, it will influence our thinking, influence our thinking. And then it will change our thinking. Whatever you see or hear or think, you do not rigidly hold this as right or wrong. It's only relative truth. Relative truth. Even the most difficult ones you have, it's only relative to some other things. It's a difficult one. It's relative to the other. It's easy, So, but if you start to get acquainted with doing something that was hard relative to you, when you put a lot more compassion and bodhicitta with hard relative truth, meaning hard difficulties situation, then it becomes a little bit easier next time. Actually, you need that kind of thing to test your compassion or lack of it. Because your compassion also is not truly existing. It needs to be tested with deluded sentient beings. Because without sentient beings, you cannot practice compassion. You can pay homage to compassion. I don't know where is compassion to pay homage to, I mean, Shantideva wrote some nice poem about compassion, but I don't know, where do you go and pay homage to compassion, It's so easily done saying, I write a poem to pay compassion. In praise of compassion, you can write. But to do the real paying homage to compassion, you have to pay homage or practice kindness to suffering sentient beings, particularly with this kind of cognitive wrong view holders. If you have compassion to them, then, of course, we will practice tolerance, we will practice forgiveness, we will practice all the above. All the engaging bodhicitta we will be practicing. And however frail our bodhicitta or practice are, it will slowly repair itself. And you can see that when we are practicing the compassion with this particular sentient beings, then it is much better than paying homage to Buddha. Then it's really practicing compassion. Compassion is not something you pay homage to. Compassion is something you have to practice with the deluded, difficult sentient beings. You can't practice compassion to the Buddha, for instance, so you got no chance. In shrine room, you got no chance to practice compassion. His Holiness Dalai Lama says, oh, this. He says, Lam Luksu. He said, these days Buddhism is just like tradition and culture. He says, that's not Buddhism. He said, we need those things just to keep the form going. But real substance is you have to transform your mind so that it actually develops these amazing qualities. And then practice compassion, practice all of those practices. Then, because you are able to fittingly practice compassion, because you know understanding of the lack of inherent existence of suffering, sentient beings. So suffering and sentient beings are impermanent, not independently, truly existing sentient being who's like that, born like that. So because of that, your compassion will not be intimidatable, no matter what difficult sentient beings you see. Why? Because the sentient beings and their sufferings and their problems are not independently existing, permanently existing, and unitarily existing. Otherwise we hold the wrong view, don't we? How I can't work with him? Straight away, like that. That kind of view that means it's a wrong view again. The wrong view comes in, and so we go and try with somebody else, go and work with somebody else, and everyone seems to be like that. Because everybody is truly existing now, when one who has never contested that wrong view within oneself. But when teaching like this says that's an incorrect relative truth. Incorrect, Lokpe Kunzop, Tibetan says, Tibetan doesn't say the incorrect relative truth. The Lokpe Kunzop means pervert relative truth. Perverse relative truth. Lokpe means it's the kind of opposite of relative truth. It's mistaken relative truth. Mistaken relative truth. So with this we'll think about it. Thank you, Chandrakirti. Thank you, Nagarjuna. Thank you, everybody.